When it comes to on-screen partnerships that transcend television and become something genuinely life-defining, very few stories in Hollywood rival the bond between Leah Remini and Kevin James. She has said it in interviews, written it in memoirs, and shouted it into cameras for over 2 decades. Kevin James ruined her. Not in a tragic way, in the best possible way. But how exactly does a man ruin you for every other co-star, every other project, and in many ways, every other chapter of your professional life? The answer turns out to be far more layered, far more personal, and far more recent than you might think. It was 1997, and by her own account, Leah Remini was convinced her career was finished before it had truly started. She had just starred in a sitcom called Fired Up, and just like the title suggested, the network torched it after a single season. She felt completely washed up, another actor, waiting for a callback that was never going to come. Then her agent called with a strange pitch. CBS was developing a new comedy about a blue-collar couple in Queens, and they needed someone to read opposite a stand-up comedian named Kevin James, who was already attached to the project. James was reportedly very particular about who they cast as his wife. He needed someone who could match his energy without flinching, someone who could throw banter back at him just as fast as he threw it. According to behind-the-scenes accounts, the moment he watched Remini's tape, he told producers she was the one. It was a significant gamble for the network, staking a new show on an actress who had just come off a cancellation. But James was immovable. He had made his decision before she even walked into the room. When she did walk in, she didn't perform. She didn't audition in the conventional sense. She simply reacted to him honestly, sharply, completely unimpressed. And that was precisely what the show needed. The chemistry between them in that room wasn't manufactured or coaxed. It was immediate and slightly combative in the best possible way. They were essentially playing verbal tag at high speed, and the executives watching quickly realized they were seeing something that couldn't be taught or replicated. The King of Queens began filming in 1998, and the show ran for 9 seasons, with James and Remini playing working-class queens, couple Doug and Carrie Heffernan, for nearly a decade on CBS. It became one of the most beloved sitcoms of its era, and the foundation for everything that followed between them was laid in that chaotic, unlikely audition room. The magic that audiences watched every week wasn't built on politeness or professionalism. It was built on conflict. According to accounts from the production, James and Remini had a ritual of arguing about everything: line readings, joke, ownership, timing, pacing, and then pivoting immediately to film a scene together as if none of it had happened. It was, by any conventional standard, a completely dysfunctional way to run a set. By their standard, it was the only way that worked. The arguments were never personal. They were never destructive. They were about the work, about the comedy, about whose instinct to trust in a given moment. And because both of them were fully invested in making every scene as sharp as possible, the fights became a strange form of quality control. They would yell, resolve, and then deliver something better than either of them would have produced if they had simply been agreeable and professional from the start. Remini has spoken openly about learning the specific mechanics of sitcom comedy from James. During those 9 years, the precise pause, the held beat, the moment you push through versus the moment you wait for the laugh. He was, by her account, a master of comedic timing, and he passed that knowledge along, not through formal instruction but through the daily, sometimes brutal process of just doing it together, hundreds of times, until it became instinct. In her 2015 memoir, Troublemaker: Surviving Hollywood and Scientology, she wrote that James was her first leading man, and that despite doing other shows with other leading men afterward, she never found anyone who could compare favorably to him. Cadillac News that was written 8 years before she would restate it publicly, and with even more conviction. The feeling had not faded. If anything, it had only deepened. The line between their on-screen marriage and their real lives was never particularly solid. They had actually met before the show existed, crossing paths in 1996 at El Floridita, a Cuban restaurant in Los Angeles, where Remini's future husband, Angelo Pagan, was performing. James attended her actual wedding when she and Pagan married in 2003, which tells you something important about the nature of their bond. He wasn't just a co-star she liked. He was family. Their families became intertwined in ways that extended far beyond the studio lot. James's wife, Stefiana de la Cruz, developed close friendships within their circle, and the two couples became part of each other's regular lives in a way that rarely happens between TV co-stars. This wasn't a working relationship that ended when the cameras stopped rolling. It was a genuine domestic entanglement of the best kind. The depth of that bond was put on stark display in August 2025, when Remini returned to Instagram after an extended silence to thank her fans for sticking by her through what she described as an incredibly difficult stretch of months. She had been processing the death of her dear friend Mike Rinder, her longtime collaborator on the podcast Scientology Fair Game, as well as the passing of a young girl named Maddie, whose Make-A-Wish dream had been to meet Remini and Kevin James together. Even in grief, the two of them were connected. The things that mattered most to her still included him. Now layer onto that the personal upheaval of her divorce from Angelo Pagan, finalized in October 2024 after 21 years of marriage. In a statement released at the time of the announcement, Remini described the split with characteristic honesty, saying they had both changed, as people do, and had gotten used to playing roles that no longer fit them. She later elaborated that leaving the Church of Scientology in 2013 had played a role in their eventual breakup, creating shifts in both of them that took years to fully surface. It was a year of enormous personal change. And through all of it, the one constant professional relationship in her life, the friendship with Kevin James, remained unshaken. In a June 2025 interview with Us Weekly, Remini stated without hesitation that James had ruined her for future projects, explaining that she loved working with him so much that he became the perfect leading man for her, so perfect in fact that no one else could match the standard he had set. Those weren't words chosen casually for a press cycle. She had been saying a version of that for nearly a decade. But in 2025, after everything she had been through personally and professionally, the statement landed with more weight than it ever had before. The reason for that weight goes deeper than chemistry or comedy timing. James was not just a great scene partner, he was a protector. Remini has revealed publicly that, while she was still a member of the Church of Scientology, church officials regularly pressured her to recruit James into their ranks, and she consistently refused, deflecting their attempts and shielding him from an organization she had not yet fully broken from. She was protecting him from something he didn't even know was a threat, at significant personal cost, while also performing a hit television show with him every week. That kind of loyalty is rare in any relationship. In Hollywood, it is almost unheard of. The protection was mutual, even if it expressed itself differently. James fought for her in the writer's room, ensured her character wasn't reduced to a prop for his punchlines, and treated the show as a shared enterprise rather than a vehicle for his own performance. He taught her how to negotiate, how to advocate for better storylines, and how to understand the business side of a long-running television production. The education she received during those 9 years gave her the confidence and the leverage to build a career that was entirely her own after the show ended. When Remini went public with her June 2025 comments, the reaction was immediate. Fans who had grown up watching Doug and Carrie Heffernan argue about everything from takeout orders to deeply held grudges felt a wave of warm recognition. This wasn't a celebrity saying something polished for a publicity cycle. This was someone speaking a truth they had been carrying for 18 years. The comments spread quickly across social media, where clips from the show began recirculating alongside fan tributes and heartfelt declarations about how much the dynamic between those two characters had meant to people. Then, in October 2025, on the occasion of the show's 27th anniversary, James posted a video to Instagram with his real-life wife, only to be interrupted by Remini storming into the frame and slapping him lightly across the face. "I'm your wife," she told him. "Say it. What's my name?" She captioned the clip. "Can you believe this guy? The audacity right in front of me." It was funny, and it was warm, and it told you everything you needed to know about the nature of their friendship in a single 30-second video. Around that same time, both of them were posting nostalgic clips and throwback photos celebrating the anniversary, with fan speculation running wild about whether a revival might be in the works. Conway Daily Sun, The show, impossibly, was still attracting new viewers. Fans had been stopping Remini to tell her, with tears in their eyes, that they never laughed so hard as they did watching her, and that the show had gotten them through some of the roughest days of their lives. 3-generation households were watching together, grandmothers, parents, and children, all finding something in Doug and Carrie Heffernan that still felt true. To understand why Remini keeps returning to this particular statement that he ruined her, that no one else compares, you have to understand what the show actually represented in the broader context of her life. She was, during those 9 years of filming, simultaneously navigating her family, her faith, and a slow-building realization that the institution she had belonged to since childhood was not what she had believed it to be. The set of The King of Queens was one of the few places in her life where she felt genuinely safe and genuinely seen. James gave her that, not through grand gestures or carefully managed expressions of loyalty, but through the daily, ordinary consistency of showing up fully and treating their partnership as something worth protecting. He couldn't understand the specific details of what she was navigating inside the Church of Scientology, but he didn't need to. He simply listened when she needed to talk, and he never used her vulnerability against her. After her split from Pagan, Remini reflected in a June 2025 interview on how friendships evolve over time, noting that sometimes you don't talk to people every day the way you used to, but that doesn't mean the love is lost. She added that she cherishes her friendships and recognizes that not everyone is meant to be in your life in the same way forever. Journal that philosophy holding relationships with love without demanding they stay exactly what they were speaks to the emotional maturity she has developed over years of very public change. And it explains, in part, why her bond with James has endured while so many other chapters of her life have closed and reopened. She has also navigated that evolution with humor, which is probably the truest sign of how stable the friendship actually is. The Instagram ambush at the 27th anniversary celebration wasn't a performance. It was just two people who have known each other for nearly 30 years falling back into the rhythm that has always defined them. The story of Leah Remini and Kevin James sits at the intersection of several ongoing cultural conversations. The first is about what it actually means to have chemistry on screen, whether it can be manufactured, or whether it requires a specific kind of trust that can only be built through time and genuine shared experience. Their partnership is a compelling argument for the latter. The second conversation is about what the entertainment industry asks of women, particularly those who come from backgrounds of trauma and institutional control. Remini spent years navigating her public career while privately managing her relationship with an organization that demanded loyalty and silence. The fact that her greatest professional success happened simultaneously with some of her most personally difficult years is not a coincidence. The show was a refuge, and James was part of what made it one. The third conversation is one that Remini herself has helped drive, about the Church of Scientology and the way it operates within Hollywood. Her Emmy Award-winning documentary series, Leah Remini Scientology and the Aftermath, remains one of the most significant pieces of advocacy journalism produced by a celebrity in recent memory. The fact that she protected James from that world, at personal cost, now reads as an act of genuine love, the kind that operates quietly and without acknowledgement, because it had to. As for the possibility of a reunion or revival, both James and Remini have addressed it with a mixture of affection and honesty. James told Collider in July 2025 that he would never say never to revisiting the show, but that doing so without Jerry Stiller, who played Remini's eccentric father Arthur and who died in 2020, felt genuinely difficult to imagine. He called Stiller the glue of the whole thing. Conway Daily Sun Remini echoed that sentiment, saying it would be hard to do a show like that without him. It was a graceful acknowledgement that some things are worth honoring exactly as they were. The cumulative effect of everything Remini has done over the past several years. The documentary, the memoir, the divorce, the grief, the return to acting with 2 films in 2025, after a years-long hiatus, is that she has emerged as one of the most genuinely respected figures of her generation in American entertainment. Not just for the sitcom, though that matters enormously to the people who watched it, but for what came after, for the willingness to tell difficult truths at personal and professional cost, for the refusal to let silence protect institutions over people. Her friendship with Kevin James is, in this context, one of the most human and enduring elements of a life that has been lived very publicly through some extraordinarily complicated terrain. It isn't a celebrity friendship built on proximity and mutual career benefit. It is a friendship built on the specific, irreplaceable knowledge of what the other person is actually like when the cameras are off and the circumstances are genuinely hard. That is what she means when she says he ruined her. Not that she is broken, not that she is lost, but that he set a standard of partnership in comedy, in loyalty, in the quiet daily work of showing up for someone that has proven to be the single most useful reference point of her professional life. Remini's articulation of this particular kind of professional bond invites comparisons across entertainment history. Tina Fey and Amy Poehler speak about their friendship in similar terms as something that recalibrated what collaboration could look and feel like. The chemistry between Betty White and her longtime Golden Girls castmates produced a similar dynamic, where shared history and genuine trust produced something on screen that no casting process could have engineered from scratch. What makes the Remini-James version distinctive is the specific combination of elements, the longevity, the personal stakes, the ways their off-screen lives became interwoven with the show itself. Remini met her ex-husband in the same year she met James. Her wedding was attended by her TV husband. Her most difficult personal period coincided with their working partnership. The show and the friendship were never cleanly separate from everything else that was happening in her life. They were part of it. That embeddedness is probably the truest explanation for why no subsequent co-star could match him. It wasn't just that he was funny, or that their timing was extraordinary, or that they trusted each other professionally. It was that he knew her during the years when she was most fully herself, most pressured, most uncertain, most in the process of becoming who she actually was. That kind of witness is not something you can replicate. The King of Queens is now entering its 27th consecutive year of airing somewhere on television, a fact that staggers even the people who made it. The show joined Cozy TV's primetime lineup in September 2025, introducing yet another generation to Doug and Carrie Heffernan, and proving that the chemistry between its two leads was not a product of its moment, but something more durable than that. The legacy of that partnership is not just in the laugh tracks or the syndication numbers. It is in what Remini has said about it consistently across 2 decades and through the most significant changes of her life. That real chemistry is not manufactured. That trust is built through conflict and loyalty and the willingness to protect someone even when they don't know they need protecting. That the best professional relationships are the ones that cannot be separated from everything else. That is true about 2 people. She went through a divorce. She lost her closest collaborator to death. She navigated grief publicly and with characteristic directness. She returned to acting. She kept showing up. And through all of it, the friendship with Kevin James remained a fixed point, something that did not shift even when nearly everything else did. That is what she means when she says he ruined her for life. It is not a lament. It is the clearest possible articulation of a standard that, once you have actually experienced it, makes everything else feel like a reasonable imitation of the real thing. If this story connected with you, be sure to like and subscribe for more in-depth explorations of the celebrity bonds that define careers, reshape lives, and prove that sometimes the most important relationship you ever have is the one you did not see coming.